I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Should we start?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Cara, and I'm here with Jazz, who's also another honours student. We're both at the Florey Institute of Neuroscience and Mental Health. Also, Fayla's here, who's part of Biomed there, and Pauline, who's the MDHS Admissions Team Coordinator. And I think Chris will be joining shortly. He's the Honours Director for MDHS. So this is just a bit of an information session all about honours and what to expect and how to apply. Here's like a contents list.
Yeah. We'll briefly talk about, firstly introduce about like what Cara and I, why did we join honors in the first place? And Cara will briefly talk about what is an honors year. And I'll introduce a bit about honors degree structure and its assessments. Also talk about different types of projects like dry lab, wet lab, and also clinical-based projects briefly. Pauline will give us some information about the entry requirements and eligibility, and also how to apply for honours, where to look for projects, stuff like that. Whoa, someone has your mic on. Yeah, and also Cara will talk about how to approach your potential supervisors, and we'll also give a brief introduction about projects we're working on at the moment. And yeah, we'll also tell you where honors can take you in the future. And yeah, that's about it.
So just before we go further, I'll just remind everyone to please turn off their mics because it is a meeting. We couldn't do a webinar, unfortunately, so everyone has to turn off their mics manually. Sorry. So yeah, a bit about us. I did a Bachelor of Science finishing last year. I majored in neuro, and I entered honours as a pathway into medicine because of the GPA boost I thought it would give. I'm also doing, I'm doing a Bachelor of Biomedicine honours, so you can kind of switch and change, like you don't have to do a science honours if you did a science undergrad. But I'm actually really enjoying research as it is, and I'm thinking maybe I'll do a PhD or I'll consider coursework instead. So I'm kind of still unsure as to what I'm going to do next year.
Yeah, I completed a Bachelor of Biomedicine last year as well, but I majored in human structure and function because, yeah, I wanted to do med and also considering dental when I was in my third year. But yeah, something also about my GPA wasn't high enough to get into both dentistry and medicine. So I applied for honors during my last semester of my third year, and I met my supervisor, and I was really keen to join her lab and also really interested in her project. So yeah, I applied to her lab and also I got in and I was really excited. But I wasn't sure if I would enjoy research, so I didn't apply for a master because master was a like 2 year long course and I wasn't sure if I could like enjoy research that much. So I did an honors. And also I'm enjoying it quite a lot. I'm considering doing a PhD after my honors degree.
So what is an honours year? So it's a year of medical research that you do after your undergrad. In terms of the content of your research and the assessments and everything, it's very similar to a master's degree, a master's by research. But the difference is that master's is 2 years, whereas honours is 1. So in a master's, you'd do more research, you'd have more data, and therefore you'd write a longer thesis. But everything else is very similar. In the coursework subjects that we do, it's combined honours and master's students. So there's different faculties in honours. You have science, you have MDHS, psychological sciences, and then vet and agriculture. And within each faculty, there are different departments. So for example, in MDHS, Jasmine and I are both part of anatomy and neuroscience, and there are different locations you can do that at. For example, the Florey, there's multiple buildings of the Florey. We're at Kenneth Meyer building, which is like where Dr. Dax is in the Dax Centre. But there's also like HFL, which is Howard Florey building just down the road. And some other students also do it at the medical building at Melbourne Uni. So there's lots of different areas and places you can complete your honours at. And as I was saying before, I did a Bachelor of Science, but then I did a Bachelor of Biomedicine honours. And that's because Biomed honours is actually a subset of Bachelor of Science, but it's just focusing on the NDHS. So I actually was given the choice of whether I should do a Bachelor of Science honours or a Bachelor of Biomed honours, but both would have been the same for me. I could do either and get the same outcome. So honours isn't just about research. So obviously there's a lot of research involved. You have to go to your lab or do anything like at home if you're doing a dry lab project, but you have other opportunities involved that are really good for things like your CV and for networking. Those include like reviews. You can have an opportunity to author reviews or actual studies for world-renowned journals. So I was given the opportunity to help author a review for the Journal of Neurochemistry, which is something I would never have thought I'd be doing like this time last year. So I thought that's a really important point to mention, that it's not just about research. There's lots of other opportunities involved as well. Another one is internships. So the Florey Institute is offering paid internships that you can take up as an honours student or a master's student or any other kind of student in the institute. And those are really good in terms of work experience. I mean, it's an actual proper job. You get paid, you get a salary, and you get to meet some really great people in the institute as well. And obviously presentations in front of different labs. There's like a journal club that's run every week, and you have the opportunity to present all of your work or any work that you've read in papers in front of lots of different people. And that just presents a sort of discussion with everyone that you wouldn't have met otherwise. So I think Jazz is going to talk about the degree structure and assessments.
Yep. So there are the major two components to the honours year is coursework and our research. Research is basically the major component of the entire honours degree, but we also have some coursework. I think most departments would have the intro subjects. So, wait, you guys can't see my mouse, can you?
Yeah, I think, well, I can.
All right. So yeah, most of the faculty should have these introduction to biomedical research. So basically, give us some introduction to how biomedical research would undergo, and also like how to search for papers, what it might involve and stuff like that. And as for our department, we have seminars in anatomy and neuroscience, which is another coursework we did in the first semester of our honours year. It has like some offers some seminars like about like anatomy and neurosciences, and we could like write a brief essay about what these seminars were about, and in a journal like article. Yeah, and the most important stuff is our research, of course, and it basically is what project you apply to, and you'll like write a thesis about it in the end. So each department has different coursework assessments. You could have essays, oral talks, exams, and assignments. But for our department, we only have those two courseworks, which doesn't have any exams. Yeah, which is pretty different to our bachelor degrees, actually. As for our research component, it has like 4 major components. Our research thesis, which is the major part of our research component, it was like 80% of our grade. Also our literature review, or defense of our thesis, and supervisor's assessment of our laboratory performance. What is a literature review? This is I think it's the first thing we ever done related to our project in my honours year. Actually, I'm not sure what Cara thinks about this.
Yeah, the same.
Yeah, it is pretty difficult. Like I didn't know where to start at the very beginning of my honours year, because like when I first heard about my project, I only have a very brief idea of what my project is about. I don't know where to look for papers and stuff, but like in the end, when like after your supervisor sends you like a lot of papers related to your field, you'll know like what research has been done related to your own research project, and you'll have an idea of what like you could write about what your project is gonna go and where's the gap between the research that has been done and what you'll be working on. A research thesis is a bit different to a literature review. It's more about your project itself, and it basically is a summary of the whole year of work you've ever done. Usually includes introduction, methods you did in your honors year for your project, the results you got, and discussion and conclusion. Yeah, like I said, the biggest component of the year. And also, like your results don't always match your hypothesis, like Cara's in my project.
I concur.
Yeah, because we both have like, yeah, Cara can talk about a little bit about that.
Basically it just like what you think might happen, like you might research all of these papers that are showing something going on with your mice, and then you go to test it and you get completely different results, and that's not because you did anything wrong. Like even getting a poor like data that doesn't show much is still really important in the field of science. It shows that this is not the case all the time, so it's fine if it doesn't work. It's part of it. I keep getting notifications on the top. I don't know what this is.
Oh, really? Oops.
Anyway, it's fine. So there's different types of projects. So not everything is in a laboratory. For example, dry lab projects, some students are doing them this year and haven't entered the lab at all. They've done at home the whole time, which is actually a good thing because of COVID. They can work from home. And some peers actually switched to dry lab because of this. But basically, it's all about analysis of data. So it can be computational, mathematical analysis. It can be analysis of past data, so things that have already happened, but like a bit more gritty analysis and graphs and programs like MATLAB and things like that. And yeah, as I said, it can be done at home. So that's a really good thing. There's also wet labs, so that's what Jasmine and I are doing. So these are done in a lab, and they're also called preclinical. So for example, if you're looking for creating a drug, first it has to go through animal studies and then human studies, which are clinical trials. So these are the preclinical things. They can involve animals, so mice, which I think, yeah, Jasmine and I are both working on mice. There's also rats, and there's other animal models. I know I read about like monkeys, even like tadpoles. Like you can get some really random animals. Drugs and chemicals, cell cultures and samples, and also behavioural analysis, which is what Jasmine and I are doing. We're doing behavioural. And of course, because you're in the lab, there's more contact hours involved. You've got to be there quite a lot. And then there's also clinical projects. So these involve humans and can also be called clinical trials. So just because they're involving humans doesn't necessarily mean you have patient contact. You can also do analysis of past data of humans. So it can also kind of be like a dry lab project where you do it at home, but it's still technically a clinical project because it's about people. But it can be quantitative, which is imaging, specimen analysis, things like that, or qualitative. And these are more like discussion-based projects involving surveys and questionnaires, things like that. Obviously, rather than in a laboratory, they're conducted in hospitals or clinics and things like that. But because of COVID, a lot of patient interaction has been stopped. So I heard from Chris, and he said that a lot of the clinical projects, they did resume when COVID died down in Victoria, but when we hit stage 4, they've stopped again. But he did say to be cautiously optimistic for next year. So I'm going to put the screen sharing through to Pauline, and she'll do this one.
All right.
There we go.
Thank you. Thanks, Cara. So the entry requirements and eligibility for honours. So to enter honours, you need to complete a 3-year undergraduate degree with at least 2 years full-time study in science or technology, including at least 50 points at surgery level, which is about half year full-time study in science or technology area that is relevant to the specialization you want to get into or the project you're interested in. The minimum WAM requirement is 65. For Melbourne Uni student, as we all know, there's a revised WAM calculation for this year, semester 1 and semester 2. So when we assess applications, we'll follow the new rules. There are also some specific specialization requirements that you need to meet. Please refer to the handbook for more details. As Cara mentioned before, in terms of eligibility, both biomedicine honours and science honours are open to internal and external applicants who have completed a Bachelor of Biomedicine or Bachelor of Science or any equivalent undergraduate degree. So for example, if you are a Bachelor of Science student from Melbourne Uni, or if you have completed a Bachelor of Biomedical Science from Monash, you're all eligible to apply for Bachelor of Biomedicine honours and Bachelor of Science honours. So it's purely your personal preference, and there's no difference between those two courses. Cara, I think I can't go to the next page.
Oh, I don't know why. Are you scrolling?
I can't scroll. Can you please go to the next page?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. How do I start from the screen?
How to apply for honours, there's 3 main steps. The first one is how to look for your supervisor and project, which we'll talk about in a minute. The second step is to submit an online course application. If you are a Melbourne Uni student, you can do that from your student portal. If you're an external student, you can apply from our online application website. And the last step is to submit your project preferences in Sonia. Sonia is the honours project preference system. So once we receive your online application, we'll check if you meet a minimum entry requirements. If you do, we'll send your personal login to Sonia for you to submit your project preferences. Some key dates for 2021 start year intake you might want to write down. The 2 rounds of applications. So round 1 is the main round when we receive most of the applications. It will close on 31st of October. And then you need to finalize your project preferences by 13th of November. We'll start to issue offers from 17th of December, and we'll try to finish everything by Christmas break. Second round is mainly for those who have met the minimum entry requirements but are not able to secure a project in round 1, or those who have missed out round 1 closing day. So if you are in one of the situations, you're welcome to apply for round 2. So round 2 will finish on 25th of Jan. And then you need to submit your preferences by 1st of February. And we'll issue offers from 4th of February. Where to look for projects? I'll say the best place for you to look for honours projects is the Sonia system. So we have already opened Sonia to prospective students. You can access Sonia from the honours website. I've also included a screenshot and the login detail here on the slide. This is just a view access for prospective students. So as I mentioned earlier, if you submit application, you'll receive your own personal login to Sonia for you to access the database. So apart from Sonia, you can also visit the faculty project database, find an expert website. You can visit department websites. They usually have like project booklets for honors and master and PhD applicants. You can also go to the like a research institute's website like Florey, Peter Mac, Peter Doty, MCRI. They all have their project list available. This year it's impossible to have physical info sessions, so most departments
Mona was the youngest.
Their webinars and virtual open days. List of all the honors info session and virtual open days. So please feel free to take a screenshot or photo. And this information will also be available on the honors website. Cara, can you go back to the page? Yeah.
Which
so just the back to the page before. Yeah, sorry. So apart from using all these resources, of course, you need to take your initiative to email all sorts of people, including your lecturers. Sometimes your lecturer may have a project that you might be interested in, or if you tell them what research area you want to get into, they might be able to refer you to someone who can offer you a project. You can also speak to your the presenters of research lectures, subject coordinators, honors coordinators, lab heads, past or current honors students, PhD students, and also potential supervisors. The information can be found in Sonia as well, which is attached to individual projects. Yeah, I think that's all from me.
Yeah, so this is just one of the research nights that is hosted on Zoom for honours, masters and PhD students. So you're more than welcome to join this as well. So also an important aspect to consider when joining honours is your supervisor. So it can be a bit daunting not knowing what to say to someone that you might not know or know much about, but they are well aware of students approaching them for interest in honours projects. So just be upfront with them, just send them, just send them an email and explain why you're interested in honours, your backgrounds, for example, your major is a good thing to include. It's okay also to say that you're using honours as a pathway to medicine. I know that a lot of people might seem like this isn't the best thing, like everyone has to be interested in research, but it's good to be open with your supervisor so they know what your interests lie and what you're looking for in the project. And also include a copy of your transcript as well. If not, they'll probably just ask you for this. And also, it's also important to note that you might not get your first preference of projects, and it's not necessarily because you did something wrong. When I applied for honours, I was told that I'd be accepted for a certain project, but at the last minute I was told that it's not possible because the project didn't receive funding. So then I had to find another supervisor, and this is fine. Like the second round doesn't mean that you missed the first round or you're not good enough for the first round. It's totally fine. You can use second round without any issues. And choose a project and a field that really interests you, because you'll be working on it for a whole year and it's quite involved as well. You'll get into the really deep depths of that project and that subject. And also with your supervisor, you'll be working with them around the clock. My supervisor messages me at like 1 a.m. sometimes, like we are really close bonded, and that's really important to have as well.
Yeah, this is my project. I'm doing, like, my lab is doing some behavioral neuroscience. So basically we look into how mice's behavior changes their brain activities. Yeah, it is a wet lab based project. This video is a video of my mouse doing the behavioral task we designed for them. I'm looking into the projection from POM into PPC. So it's from a thalamic region to a posterior parietal cortex, where I'm investigating if there's any multisensory integration involved in this specific projection. And also this behavioral task is a multisensory integration, like it's a multisensory task. So it basically asks the mice to respond to, it is a multisensory task. So the mice are asked to respond to a combined stimulus. Once the mice are learned to perform this task, we're looking into if this behavior association learning will change the integration process we hypothesized. And other than, wait, I can't control the screen, Cara.
I don't know why it's not working, so yeah, I'll just go to the next one.
Yeah. So other than the behavior training we're doing to the mice, we're also looking into the axon projection itself. So this is a video of calcium imaging events. So when you see some like white dot flashing on the screen, it's a calcium event. It is monitored through two photon microscope, and also we injected GCAMP6, so it is a calcium indicator in the mice's brain before all the behavioral training and stuff. so we can look into how their behavior in terms of their neural activities. This is a photo taken by one of my friends, also an honor student from our lab. Usually different projects may give you a very different experience and also may have really different lives. Because I'm working with live animals, and also my animals are water restricted because we need them to be motivated to perform the task. So I have to go into a lab like every day, like even on weekends, because I need to monitor their weight, and also because consistent training would help them to perform the task. So yeah, I basically have to go in every day. But usually you can have a very flexible schedule, even though you have to go in every day, but you can choose whether to go in the morning or in the afternoon. And also you can plan ahead, like if you have like really important stuff to do like in a week, you can like ask someone to help you like feed the mice, give them some water, help you monitor them if you can't go in or something like that. Yeah, that's basically my life, in all honesty. Pretty busy at the moment, but yeah.
So this is my project. I'm doing a behavioral or cognitive neuroscience project, which is kind of like in between neuroscience and psychology. And it's also dealing with mice. And it involves the tendency for mice to seek non-instrumental information. This is information that doesn't influence decision making. So instrumental information, which is the opposite, is something that you would use to make a decision. For example, if you do an exam, you would use the result of that exam in further study or for looking for a job. Whereas compared to that, if you do a BuzzFeed quiz, you wouldn't use that information for anything in the future. So that would be an example of non-instrumental information. But animals and humans do seek this non-instrumental information, and a reason for that could be curiosity or anxiety. And so we're looking at the tendency for mice to receive this using a touchscreen in order to get a primary reward, which is strawberry milk. You can see like the little video of the mice touching the screen, getting the milk at the back. This is a novel assay, so it's never been done before in rodents, and that's a major limitation in this field because mice are one of the one species that are really well understood in terms of their neurophysiology. So we know exactly where everything is inside their brain, we know what to look for, and all the recording software is all well developed. So we thought if we could get a behavioral assay to look at this behavior, then we can then develop a neural recording assay in the same chamber. So my lab is really tiny. It's just my supervisor, my mentor, and me. And most honours students will have a mentor. Those are usually PhD or postdoc students who have just finished their PhD. So a day in the life of me depends on the time of year, obviously, especially in 2020. First semester, I was completely at home. I didn't enter the lab once. But as soon as semester 2 hit, I am in pretty much every day. Luckily for me, I don't have to go in on weekends, unlike Jasmine. The animal welfare staff feed my mice for me on the weekends. So I leave weighed food on the counter and they just put it into their cages. And the reason I have to go in every day is because my testing, we only had 6 months or so to do testing compared to a full year. And that's because of COVID. So I have to do really condensed testing. So I'm doing it for approximately 14 weeks straight, 9 to 4 each day of the week. Obviously, as you can see, a lot of PPE and cleaning. So I have to wear full PPE, clean for like 2 to 3 hours a day, just cleaning the touchscreen chambers and everything that's involved. I also have to do my lab work in the dark. So my mice are reverse circadian cycles. So in the day, they're in the dark, and in the night, they're in the light. So that means I work under a red light. And there's a lot of data analysis, which is probably true for most projects, if not all projects in honours. So I use quite a few different programs to do graph work and correlations and things like that. And I do that when I come home from the lab. But thankfully my mentor is really good with this. He's done it for his whole PhD and his honours before that. So if I ever struggle with the analysis, he steps in and takes over. So just the last slide we'll talk about is where honours can take you. So as mentioned in the description, we will talk about medicine. So a lot of people do use honours as a pathway to medicine, but not everyone may know that the GPA that you get, it can be an increase or a decrease. So if you do, if your WAM that you get at the end of honours is higher than your undergrad WAM, then it will increase. But if it's lower, it may decrease. And this is not applicable for another year after you finish your honours year. So if I were to do honours this year, and then I would have to wait another year, so I can only apply in 2022. So for you, it'd be 2023 medicine entry. Also, COVID had an impact on WAMs, as everyone probably knows, and this is also applicable to honours. So honours was not included in 2020 GPA calculations. However, not only medicine is a pathway, PhDs are the probably the most common pathway after honours, I would say, as honours is the quickest route into research. So masters is another route, but it is 2 years. But if you're interested in PhDs, honours is the best way to go because it's the shortest route. There is a minimum WAM required, but it's variable each year, it changes. 90 is like a rough estimate from what I've heard, but that could be wrong, I'm not sure. And obviously there's other postgraduate degrees that you can take after honours as well. A lot of coursework subjects, masters by research you can also do after an honours year, but these obviously have different entry requirements. Some take WAM, some take GPA. You'd have to look into the specifics for each one and see which ones take honours into account. So just a few questions if anyone has any. We've got plenty of time. So I think, is Chris here? I'm not sure. Sorry.
I just want to also say, if anyone has any questions, especially relating to Pauline's part, where we got interrupted a little bit there, now's your chance to do it. We've got so much time.
Yeah, so feel free to ask. We're all here, or you can also send us an email if you'd prefer to do it without the Zoom.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I would like to ask about, you mentioned about one of the assessment for honours is oral defense thesis. Do you mind explain about it? Is it like oral presentation?
Oh yeah, so a defense of your thesis is basically after you finish submitting your thesis, you have to present your research in an oral form. So it is an oral presentation.